Well, Francesca, next book is entitled Human Rights in an Age of Failed Utopias, which seems very appropriate for an age of liberal conservatism. The article for which Francesca has been awarded the prize is entitled Solidity or Wind, What's on the Menu in the Bill of Rights Debate. But solidity or wind is what we're waiting to hear to find out what this coalition is all about. So, on behalf of the PQ board, it is with great pleasure that I award the first Bernard Crick Prize for 2010 to Francesca Klug.
I'm going to be very brief. This is a great honour. I think the only reason why I've won this award is because the title, Solidity or Wind, is taken from an essay by George Orwell in 1946. And I've been told that if I only have 30 seconds to say something, this is what I've got to say. On today of all days, we've got to save the Human Rights Act. Thank you.
The Orwell Prize for Journalism.
Thank you, Jean. Thank you, everybody. When I was first asked to be a judge for this prize, I wondered what George Orwell himself was made of it. Enthusiasm, condemnation, wry detachment. My guess is that Orwell would have regarded tonight's proceedings as 3 parts indulgence and 1 part tribute to real quality. But it is only a guess because we can't be sure, because he was so unpredictable. He didn't fit into simple categories. He couldn't easily be labelled. And really that's the point. Those qualities of unpredictability, a refusal to be labelled, are qualities, I think, to which all journalists should aspire and to which our shortlisted journalists displayed in profusion in their work last year. And what a year it was. President Obama's first year as US president. The battle to revive the world's economy and tackle poverty at home and abroad. The continuing conflicts in the Middle East and Afghanistan. Tensions and uncertainty in the new Europe. In the Far East. In Southern Africa. And the beginnings of the end of New Labour here in Britain. All those big, uncertain stories needed the skills of our shorthand journalists. So I'm delighted to pay tribute, and I'll do it in alphabetical order, to John Arledge of the Sunday Times Magazine and News Review. It's wonderful that at least in one place there is still this long-form, time-consuming, intelligent, inquiring journalism. And John's articles on Goldman Sachs in the magazine, on the end of the tiger economy in Ireland, his piece for News Review on what Tony Blair did next, are all tributes to a form of journalism of which there is still far too little. Amelia Gentleman of The Guardian, especially the G2 section. Roger and I were struck how Amelia tackled those important but difficult subjects, which are not obviously turn-ons for the ordinary reader, but which really do need to be tackled. Are living on welfare, or child protection officers, or life in retirement homes. And she made them gripping, well worth reading, and it's a journalism, again, there's far too little of. Peter Hitchens of The Mail on Sunday. We're not talking about his columns here, but his longer pieces abroad. And Peter wrote compelling pieces from some of the places in the world struggling most to come to terms with the 21st century. Japan, China, South Africa, and the Czech Republic. Paul Lewis of The Guardian, for a very specific series of stories at a particular moment, shortly after the G20 demonstration, when we had the death of the newspaper vendor Ian Tomlinson, and the police attempts to shuffle off the causes, and Paul's run of tenacious stories exposed the truth, a really important set of articles. Anthony Lloyd of The Times, but also writing in Standpoint, whose reporting from Pakistan and Afghanistan struck us as the best of a raft of very good journalism from that very troubled part of the world, demonstrating that there is no substitute for being there, staying there, getting to know the place, and then writing about it with understanding and with real courage. Hamish McRae of The Independent, who we regarded as the best, the most consistent, the most perceptive guide to the recession, to the banking crisis, and to the unfolding saga of government borrowing. Again, not the only journalist covering this well, but we thought Hamish maintained a particular high standard throughout the year on the most difficult and perhaps most important economic story of the last decade or so. And finally, David Reynolds of the BBC Radio 4 series, The Empire of Liberty, this huge, ambitious series of the story of America, which culminated last year in President Obama taking the inaugural oath on January the 20th. We felt this was that sort of historical journalism at its very best, and also the associated journalism on the BBC website. So those are our shortlisted people. In choosing our winner, Roger Grafe and I sought to choose that journalist because this is the Orwell Prize. It's not just a journalism prize, it's the Orwell Prize. The journalist who, in our view, best displays Orwell's particular qualities. Observation. He was no member of the commentariat, which I was for so many years. He went out there. He went to places. He saw, he observed. But he added to that observation interpretation and understanding. And also commitment, not the commitment of taking easy sides in a predictable way, but feeling that if things were being done wrong, that should be disclosed and reported and said. He was not a detached observer. And there was the clarity of his writing, as firm and polished and potentially lethal as a guardsman's boot. There was urgency about his writing. He was writing about the things that mattered at the time. But also there was a durability, that whether he was writing about the 30s or the wartime period or just afterwards, they still pay rereading now. And I came across the other day something that to me sums it all up, that Orwell wrote when he said that when he reads a piece of writing, he imagines the face of the writer. In writing about Charles Dickens, he said, in the case of Dickens, I see the face of a man who is always fighting against something, but who fights in the open and is not frightened. The face of a man who is generously angry. In other words, of a 19th century liberal, a free intelligence, a type hated with equal hatred by all the smelly little orthodoxies which are now contending for our souls.